I I'm going to go very slowly and take you through so everybody's on the same page. This is like an ECOSOC or the Economic and Social Council 101 and what it means to be a member, how you get a membership, and later on, for those who decide to do it, we can certainly work and go in more depth. So I'm going to give you a lot of information. Feel free to raise your hands. Siobhan will be monitoring. Siobhan and Nilema will be helping me monitor. If you have any questions, burning questions, put them into the chat and we can start to go through this. So I'm going to start off by saying that the Economic and Social Council is a principal organ that is the principal organ of the UN, of the United Nations whole system, that coordinates economic and social and related work from 14 specialized agencies, the functional commissions, and the 5 regional commissions. I'll show you what that is in a moment, so don't panic. It serves ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, which is the part of the UN, serves as the central forum for discussions on international economic and social issues. It's where they formulate policy. It's where they formulate recommendations to address to member states in the United Nations systems. And the information is, the ECOSOC Council is run and supported by the Secretary General. Now, what does that mean? I'll show you in the next slide. So this, if you think of it, is the UN system. The part that we are talking about is this part circled in red. It's the Economic and Social Council. Underneath that, it has a number of programs like UNHCR, that's the Human Rights Council, the UN Human Council on Refugees, UNICEF, which is the UN Children's Fund, UN Development Programme falls under there. The commissions are the ones that we've been talking recently about through the Beijing Plus 30 process, which are the regional commissions. So in each of the 5 regions of the world, there is a regional commission. In the Asia Pacific, where Siobhan, Nilema, and myself are based, it is ESCAP, the Economic Social Council of Asia Pacific. ECA is the Economic Council of Africa. We've got also under there, we've got CSW, which is the Commission on the Status of Women. Within the commissions, we've got sustainability. So there's a lot of different commissions coming through. Some of them are officers and some of them are actually commissions like we've just had with CSW, big meetings or conferences. And then on top of that, you've got all these specialized agencies. So just to understand, when Nilema goes to do her work, she's dealing with all of these different agencies and not just CSW. So when we move forward, what does it mean? So the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, is the only one that has a structured framework for the involvement of NGOs. It's the only one that actually is formalized, and that's formalized within the UN Charter, Chapter 10, Article 71. And I've put the article in there so you can see this. So it was actually established within the Charter of the UN in 1945 that civil society should be able to interact and work collaboratively with the United Nations system. And this is where it sits when we're looking at the broader UN. What is the purpose of having this? Now, the purpose of having this status is not just one way. It's not just for us to be able to go to the UN. It's also for the UN to be able to talk to us. So it's an accreditation framework that benefits both the UN and NGOs. It's a mutual beneficiary because often we can bring information and knowledge and lived experience into those halls of the UN, and they can take that and utilize it within their own. And it falls, I'm going to be technical, this is where it sits under the ECOSOC resolution in 1996. So from 1945, they said it was going to be in, but 1996, we get it formalized a little bit more, where it says that consultative arrangements are to be made on the one hand, for the purposes of enabling the council or one of its bodies to secure expert information or advice from organizations having special competence in the subjects for which consultative arrangements are made, and on the other hand, to enable international, regional, sub-regional, and national organizations that represent important elements of public opinion to express their views. So it says very clearly it's a two-way communication, and we have to remember that when we're actually in these the halls of power, as we call them. So what's the next one? When we start to look at ECOSOC accreditation and what it is, there's actually three different types of ECOSOC accreditation, and they're for different agencies. So when you're starting to think about which accreditation it is that you're going for, you need to really be looking at either general consultative status or special consultative status. The majority of accreditations that are going through at the moment are on the special consultative status. So this is, I'll just go through them. The general consultative status is really for large international NGOs who cover their main area of work is UN work. Right. So any of the big development agencies they're at the COP discussions, they're at the SDG discussions, they're at the climate discussions, they're at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals discussions, they're at the Commission on the Status of Women, they're at the Commission of Indigenous Peoples, they're at the they go to the General Forum. So they really are very busy, they're very established, and their core work is the UN work and achieving that. Special consultative status is for a lot of other organizations. A lot of women's organizations are under special consultative status because they have a special competency in a specific area. So business and professional women have a specific competency in both the economic achievements of women, the economic sustainability, security of women. They also look at leadership. We have a very big leadership part. So it says smaller and more established NGOs, but really, it's about how much of the agenda you actually grab or you can actually interact with. Is that making sense? Is there anyone who's not clear on that so far? Okay, great. And then there's a roster status. Now, roster status is not likely to be us because these are UN bodies that are really specialized agencies. So that's the World Health Organization. I've forgotten what a lot of these are. The International Labour Organization, UNESCO's the Children's Fund. These are normally, when you work specifically or in line, they will roster you in. And some of the universities may be in here, or some organizations that have really high technical focus, but very narrow technical focus. So medical professions may come into this particular area if that is. So there's three areas, and what you'll be looking at, has that gone back or forward? It's gone back. What you will be looking at is choosing which of these statuses you will be going for. And that's something we can talk about when we get to the point of we're actually going to do this, and we'll work collaboratively with you on that. So far we've got why, where it comes from. This is a two-way flow. There's different ways of being accredited. That keeps jumping backwards. So why would clubs want them? And I think, Diana, you said it perfectly earlier. You said exactly why we should be interacting and being part of the UN. So why do our BPW clubs, why should they actually want to have ECOSOC status? So the status will allow you to link, how did you put it? It's a pathway to influence, impact, and shifting power was what I picked up, Diane. And I think this is exactly right. And these are the ways you do it. You do it by providing expert analysis. This brings your members from your club, your context into the global arena. It also allows a national position for you to bring that position into the global. It's an early warning system. You can actually say, look, this issue is coming up, and then you go to the UN and they say, hey, this is an issue for us, and this is an issue for us. And so it gets flagged as something that's emerging, a new and emerging issue in the area of your work. It allows the club to interact at the national level, at the regional level, and at the global level on the monitoring and implementation of international agreements. So, for example, the Commission on the Status of Women, which is where this wonderful poster came from this year, that the commission that came directly out of the Beijing Platform for Action, which is a pathway for CEDAW, which is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. It doesn't just stand alone, it's actually something that's there. Our government's committed and commit each year to a specific area of that agreement. And it allows us, even if you only attend CSW each year and work on that part of the UN agenda, it allows you to monitor and implement what's happening in your own country on your specific issue. It raises public awareness, it helps advance the UN goals, sharing information at events and platforms. It allows you, UN ECOSOC status allows you to have a side event, for example, within the UN building. It allows you to have statements, write statements to put publicly into the UN that are tabled at the UN as part of the procedures. It allows you to collectively give statements. It gives you access to meetings, and it also lets you network and for advocacy and lobbying purposes. But I have to come back to the context within which Diana opened and which we are in at the moment. There is an incredible pushback on women's rights, and we as an organization have a responsibility to be looking at and to be trying to support our members and to shift the dialogue into a progression of ways ahead. So this being ECOSOC accredited allows you to continuing UN engagement with the Commission on the Status of Women, but also to think, hang on a minute, are there other spaces we can work in? It allows you to navigate the national and regional level and be able to be aware and raise awareness at the global level. It helps to strengthen both your national mechanisms through your offices or your departments for women. And I'm focusing in on the Commission on the Status of Women for this one, because I think it's the one that most of us know. And it allows you to strengthen the regional processes into that commission each year. It allows discussion with our members, because often our members are unaware of how the international obligations flow out at the global level, at the national level. What they call the grounding of human rights is often missed because they don't understand that. So it allows us to have these discussions in the club and to build the institutional capacity of national level women's organizations. And I think in this context of the pushbacks we've seen, it's not easy to get access to the UN. It's not easy to get into New York. It's not easy to get visas, so it is becoming more and more challenging for our members to get in. So if we can have real representation in these spaces, it's really a good point. Now, at this point, we were going to be asking what it means to have ECOSOC accreditation, and Siobhan, who will be speaking to this one?
I am here, Carol. I will explain in a very simple word. When we talk about BPW to new members, what we say that we have consultative status with the UN, right? That's how we sell BPW. Then do what? That member has to wait for years and years and years to even attend one single event at UN. The reason why that is happening is, let's say, for example, for CSW, we have 20 passes for BPW International. The 10 are used by the executives. And the remaining 10, when we divide to 5 regions, that means one country has to wait for 12 years to get to CSW with BPW International passes. And look at us, we have in 120 countries, and one country has to wait for 12 years just to go to CSW, where we will not speed up this process of gender equality. So the reason why this initiative I had to start is because I have seen in the past, like ever since I joined and attended CSW, is there are so many members who come to New York for Leaders Summit. There are around 100 of them, and only like 10 of them, they get the passes. What happens to 80 of them? They have to look for passes in other NGOs, and if they don't make it, they are running around outside UN. And this year also, there were few of them who were running around outside UN without UN passes. So the reason why this initiative started is to make sure that we have maximum women participation, not just at CSW, but also at, let's say, the next event that's happening, it's high-level political forum. That's where the entire world will be talking about how to implement and what they have done to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals globally. It's all ministers are going to be there. But are we there? No, because only we get 7 passes. And right now, there are 10 people who have reached out to me to attend the event, and I don't know where to look for 3 more passes. And to tell you the truth, this year we had more than 100 BPW members attending CSW because I was able to literally reach out to, other NGOs outside BPW to get the passes. Whereas we also have 3 countries that already has a constitutive status. One is Canada. They had the 20, BPW members from Canada who actually came to New York. Then we had BPW Spain, who gave out to lots of, 20 other members around the world to come to New York. And then we had BPW Japan. How they use their passes is they bring the young people from Japan to do the CSW training. So this is how they are using, and this is what every country who has, does qualify can apply and use it so that you have representation from your country and you don't have to wait for BPW International for 12 years. Because if we really, give the passes equally to everyone, I think, we'll lose members because whoever joins BPW, they want to, be the voice. And if they don't get a chance to even enter for UN events, I don't think they would stay that long. And as you know that, BPW has a long history at UN because it was one of the 12 or 13 first NGOs who got the consultative status at UN in 1947. And as you know, BPW started long before UN started. Even then, till now, we don't have gender equality globally, but inside UN also, you can see that this year we are celebrating 80 years of United Nations, and for 80 years we have never had a women secretary general. This was the topic that was discussed by all the member states at CSW. And the reason why that is happening is that we don't groom our young girls to be the secretary general. And that can only happen when we give our young girls a chance to enter UN and get the taste of UN so that they groom themselves to be the Secretary General of UN in future. So this is the initiative in which we can have maximum passes of different countries and then start our young girls from our country to groom themselves and learn. Because we can say a lot of things at UN, and then at our club level or federation level, and then the members don't know what to do. If they don't have any other NGO beside BPW, they will never ever be able to enter UN. And for CSW, we do get 20 passes. Other organizations have it, but when it comes to high level political forum, these are the events where women are missing, and that's where we need to make sure that we are present in those spaces where the hall is filled with majority of men. And today I think it's a big step that we are taking that, and I want to thank Diana for supporting it, because if the president does not support this initiative, I don't think it will be, allowed for the clubs to apply for it. But I think it's also the right of the club. It's your rights, to practice, because this, you are the one who run this international organization. It's the federation that makes us international federation. So I would request everyone, because at UN, when it started, it is because of Esther Heimer who started it. And, she is the one who pushed so much that she became the first NGO CSW chair. And the last NGO CSW chair was Susan O'Malley. She's still in New York and our BPW main representative for New York. And she's been advocating and working for BPW to lobby at UN. And one of the things is, right now, most of you must be thinking of applying it and must be wondering how you're going to, run in future. But one of the things I can tell you is this is just the beginning. We are just starting this first phase. And then we'll have regular meetings so that we also teach the federations how to run, once you get the consultative status, or how to, because just applying is not enough. And I request most of the presidents who are present here to appoint someone to get this thing done, because that person has to do a lot of reading, lot of writing, and later on has to also follow up, and it doesn't happen in a month. It takes almost 2 years. It's a long process. So we have to have somebody who is going to, follow up on this. And once you have the stages, then we start another training where how to entirely run this, because this is everything is done by, it has to be done online in the, NGO branch. So uh, there are different stages. The first stage, we have started this, and I want to thank Carol for taking an initiative. She has helped many NGO in Asia Pacific to get this, status, and for Siobhan, who's been very helpful. And she one thing she told me is the first thing she will do is try to get New Zealand the status, and she's already working on it. And all the best. And I think that with this, I want to thank you everyone for actually joining. And yes, if there is anything else that uh, uh, I think we have in the end for everybody else to let us know if there is any more information that you want. So it is just the beginning, and we'll have a continuous series until everybody gets approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nalema. So I think you've raised some really important issues, and you've mentioned two of the commissions. You've mentioned the Commission on the Status of Women, where you have only 20 access points to go from a global organization. Each ECOSOC accreditation has 20. So if your club wanted to go to the Commission on the Status of Women, if we just talk about UN passes, you would have 5 annual grounds passes plus 20 for the Commission. In addition, you can also apply for temporary passes for specific periods of time. So when we talk about having ECOSOC status, it's not just about the passes, but it's also, you mentioned the high-level political forum, Nalena, and often those who go to New York are only those who go for the countries who are reporting on that specific goal for that specific target, and they have been working with their countries on that. But there's also a whole other process that happens in the region on the high-level political forum that members can go to quite openly, listen to, and possibly present at, that helps influence the agenda. And I think that's where the accreditation really comes in important, because it allows you not only attendance, but to actually speak at and participate at international commissions, conferences, and events, both at the regional and the international level. The opportunity also exists. So each year, certainly for the Commission on the Status of Women, but you can do it for a lot of the other commissions as well, there's the opportunity for written statements and oral presentations, actually interventions from the floor, which are quite powerful on when there's a contentious issue being discussed. So, for example, when we talk about violence against women, if there's violence against women being discussed, and we talk about violence in the workplace or violence towards migrant refugee workers, however that is reflected, we are able to raise that issue to the governments live as part of that commission. So there are opportunities in different ways of getting involved. So it's also about, and when I think about statement drafting and how Melbourne, my club, works, is we engage everyone in what should we be putting into the statement to CSW? What is it we need to have in that statement? So it's also an opportunity to engage your national club, your local membership clubs, in saying, what are the key issues? What are the 4 key issues we have to have in this statement that we put forward to that particular commission? So say it's the Commission on the Status of Women. Next year, it's on justice, what are the areas of economic justice that we really want to highlight, and then how do we write that in our statement and put it in? So there's a lot in what the ECOSOC status allows you to do that those without it can't do. So here we go. This is 101 accreditation process, and it's really simple. It's 4 steps, possibly repeat. Okay. I would encourage those who are thinking of doing this to really step back, get everything ready. Now, I'm just going to ask a quick question to Siobhan. Siobhan, you have opened up the questionnaire that you have to fill out. How did you feel when you saw that questionnaire?
That it will require a lot of thought, a lot of consideration.
It's quite overwhelming, right, when you first open it. And as you go through the questionnaire, it becomes more and more challenging to get what you want to say into the word limit that you need to say it in. So it is really a long process. You know, anyone who I'm not sure what languages they do it in. I've always only done it in English, so I apologize. I didn't check. I think all of them have to be in English, right?
Yeah, I think they will have to be.
Yeah, it has
Applications
to
have
be
to
in
be in
English. So
English.
this is certainly something that any of us who've gone through it can help you with, is crafting how to say that in a way that will get it through. And I'll go a little bit into, I think I've done a little bit more on that further down. So the first step is to identify the relevance of your work with the UN work, and then assign somebody who is going to be the point person for the emails, the drafting, the following up, the checking, the everything. And I would say that that becomes something that is built into a 2-year process, because it takes nearly a year. The minimum you can get this through as a year is 12 months, right? And if there's any questions and they come back to you, it's another 6 months. And if they come back to you again, it's another 6 months. It's not a quick process. But if you get through first time, and we all will, because we are BPW, we will start off by identifying our relevance with the UN work. Then we start the application procedure. Then it is reviewed by Congo, which is the Committee of NGOs in the UN, and that basically just reviews it to make sure that everything is in line. If there's anything wrong, it doesn't even go to the Economic Social Council. It goes back to you. Then it goes, if it's fine, if that part of it's right, everything's ticking the boxes, then it goes in for the decision at the ECOSOC decision. And if they say, yeah, this is good, then you'll receive a letter which says, thank you for your application. Your application will be tabled at the XYZ meeting of ECOSOC, and they'll give you the number of the meeting. And following that meeting, you have to keep then checking, and then you have your accreditation for the next event that you want to go through. So, right, so say it's CSW, you start the process this year, you will not have it for next year, but you may have it for the year after, because that's March each year, right? So that's kind of what you do. That's the process. It's really simple, but the requirements for accreditation mean that you have to be eligible, and the eligibility sits. That means in order to be able to apply for accreditation, your work must be relevant to the work of ECOSOC. Now, there's no doubt that business and professional women and economic empowerment is not relevant to the work of the Economic and Social Council. So, you know, we're sort of fine on there, but you have to find the way to reflect that. You have to have a transparent, and this is at the club level, so a transparent and democratic decision-making mechanism through your committee. You have to be able to show that. A chart is very useful if you have one. An organizational chart is very useful. And you have to have a constitution. Now, I know for Australia, we have to have a constitution. The Australian, to be registered, you have to have a constitution in a lot of countries. So you would need to have a copy of that democratically adopted constitution. You have a headquarters with an executive officer. Sorry, there's a typo in here. with an executive officer. So the executive officer doesn't have to be called executive officer. It can be president of the club. It can be secretary of the club. It can, but someone who you have to have an executive officer who is the top person, because they are the ones who are allocated the first UN pass. And after, and only after, they have been allocated their pass, virtually or written, will any other passes be allocated. So when you go into that system, there's a bit of, so your executive officer will normally be the president, but you need someone who is going to be really tracking this and on ball and knowing what's happening to keep that going. You have to have been in existence for at least 2 years, have the authority to speak for your members, have a representative structure. So that's a broader structure of how you as the committee or speak to your clubs, and how do your clubs speak to you. So that's that representative structure they're looking at, how you share information. Appropriate mechanisms for accountability is all about funding. You have to put in your funding, you have to show your finances, your financial statements. They have to be audited, they have to be up to date. The other thing that is normally useful are annual reports. So for some who have annual reports, an annual report is really good because it shows what you do each year. And I think when you put in the financial statements, you either put in 2 or 3 years. You have to show the funding, and they have to be audited. So if you go over a financial year, this is the other thing I've had with groups I've worked with. They've gone over a financial year when they've gone to put in their application, and so that is no longer a valid financial record. They have to go and update that record before it can go ahead. So we have to make sure that all of this is done. And the other thing is, because we are affiliated with BPW International, we need to demonstrate that we are actually still part of that, and we're not working against, but we're working collaboratively, and it's a broader mechanism. All right. So it's a 6-step process. As I said, you create an organizational profile. Well done, Siobhan, New Zealand. They've got their organizational profile. Step 2 is the sticky bit. So that's where you have to submit your application online. Then it goes for the initial screening, which is Congo normally does that. Congo then will review the application. So it's like when you're doing a job application. If you rate all the criteria, you go onto one pile. If you don't, you go to another pile. So that pile that doesn't meet the criteria all gets sent back to the clubs. The one that meets the criteria will then be reviewed by Congo. And then if it continues again, then it'll be recommended for further review, and it goes for the ECOSOC decision. If ECOSOC have a question, and this has happened a number of times, it might be about your membership, it might be about your finances, it might be about something, then you have to go back to your online application and resubmit your application and go through the process again. Okay, so you go back to step 2. And then that takes again another 6 months. So this is what I was saying. It's not a quick, it's an easy process. It's better to take your time, get everything right the first time, check it, double check it, triple check it, and then push the button to say it's going in. Common mistakes. And these are ones that I have had to fix multiple times. The creation of multiple profiles. So when you go in to set up your profile, somebody might have started it 15 years ago and you don't know about it. Or here's an example for the Beijing review for the 1995 Fourth World Conference on Women. A lot of organizations were given what was called special accreditation to attend that meeting, which they set up a profile for and thought they had accreditation. The meeting's finished, it's moved forward. 30 years on, there's a profile, but it's not an active profile, and it messes up the system. So the computer, it say no, right? That's all I can say, is if you create multiple profiles, you have a big problem with the computer. It messes up the system. So you have to check first that you don't already have that. If you have, you have to find out who created it or delete it. Now, that's very difficult if you don't know who created it, because they have the email that keeps it alive. So you have to, it's a big process. So ensure that you make one profile. If you start it and you think you've done it wrong, don't start up another one. Go back in and edit that profile. And that might be challenging to do, because sometimes you have to actually send a message to the UN headquarters to get access to that particular area. But be really careful on that. With the email addresses, the organizations that I've worked with, we have always set up a separate organ. It's always been part of the role of one of the committees, so it goes into that email. But there is a second email. There should always be at least 2 emails. Possibly 3, because sometimes you never know what happens in clubs when people live, die, leave, fall over, break a leg, and can't find their emails. So make sure that the email addresses are the correct ones and they're kept up to date. Get ready before you start. So get the form, print it out, go through it, check you have all of your documents ready in a way you can upload them into the system, because it's an online system. So get everything ready beforehand and make sure that it's in a way and of a size that you can actually upload it. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to upload documents that are too big. They've had to be changed. So really be careful about that. And make sure that your financial statements are clear. And if the majority of your funding comes from government, then it's best to explain why. This I don't think would apply to any of the BPW clubs, because the majority of funding comes from membership, and that's fine. But often you have to make sure that you are not seen as what they call a quango, which is a semi non-government organization. You're actually implemented by government, but you are working as an NGO. So in some countries, they do have this. So China, the All China Women's Federation is not an independent NGO. It is a quango, but it has accreditation for obvious reasons, because that was the only opportunity. The Vietnamese Women's Association was the same for a very long time. So there are different organizations. So just be aware of that when you're looking at your financial statements. If the majority of it comes from events, donations and membership, you've got absolutely no problem. If it comes in because you're getting government grants to run particular projects, then have a discussion around that. And once you're accepted, you have a lot of privileges. And with privileges, there comes huge responsibility. And I've put grounds passes first, because there are a number of grounds passes that need to be issued and monitored. And the person who is in charge of the UN section of your club will need to understand the responsibility around this. So as I said, there's 5, for example, for CSW, there are 5 passes. Well, there are annually 5 grounds passes for any of the UN agencies. So Nalima, you would have one automatically as the vice president, and you can enter basically any of the UNs because you have all of those different passes. And then there are 4 underneath that sit with what BPW International have as permanent representatives to the UN. And so if you are going to have someone who's going to be your permanent representative, normally they would live near the UN office. So I am a member of Asia Pacific Women's Watch. I'm in charge of the UN for Asia Pacific Women's Watch. Our representative, our UN representative, is the Global Network for Women Peace Builders, which is situated in New York, and then reports back to us on issues that are happening in the region. So those with the UN's ground passes have got to report to you. You need to keep your information and your organizational details updated. And this often will slide through because you forget. But if you change presidency, you have to inform the UN that your president has changed and that the head of your organization's changed. Therefore, that pass goes to that person and nobody else can sign for anything else. So you have to keep everything up to date. You have to put in a report every 4 years. They're called quadrennial reports. And they are they're a bit of a nightmare to do because you have to actually state every single event that you've been to. And that can be challenging when you have a number of members attending annually and you only have a slot in the report, because this is again an online form for a small number of report backs. If there's a problem with anything, if there's an issue arises with the UN or with you have to really address them quickly. And I'm saying this because sometimes, Nolema's talked a little bit about this, sometimes we ask other organizations to lend us accreditation for an event. And we all want to get as many people. Believe me, in this current context, we have to get as many people in as we can with progressive and positive voices. So we all share a little bit of our accreditation, but sometimes that person may go and speak. So say I don't know, let's make up a name. Australia Post has asked BPW for an event, for a position in the past, and we've given them one because we were being kind, and they stand up and cause a problem at the meeting, but they're there with your accreditation. You have to be on top of that and address that straight away. So that's a challenge, and making sure you get a report back from it's a privilege we're getting. We have a responsibility, but we are very loose in supporting as many as we can to get in. So this is also linked with, maintaining relations at the UN. And of course, it's no point in having ECOSOC accreditation if you're not going to attend any of the events. Why bother? Right? If you're not going to go, you don't know, then why bother having accreditation? You're planning to attend events, you have it as a part of your schedule, and you go. And the ensuring the safety of those gaining accreditation is just, bear in mind that this might be the first time somebody's gone into these spaces. They don't know how to act. They don't know what to do. Just making sure that they, and I have to say, I think BPW do it really well with the Leadership Summit. The Leadership Summit for the Mission on the Status of the Women, where it's one of the biggest events on the gender agenda. Do it really well by, making sure that everybody knows what they need to know. So that's making sure that you have that is something that you really have to think about, not after you've got it, but before you get the accreditation. What's going to happen in these spaces? Who's going to do the reports? Who's going to do the updates? Who's the one who speaks to the UN? How do we do this? Has got to be part of the schedule. And then there's 2 areas here, and I've pulled up my screens because, Nalema, you know these back to front. There are 2 areas you have to know about and you have to really be checking very regularly. And these are the back end areas that once you gain accreditation, you and only you will have access to, or you and the second person on the email will have access to. And that is the ICSO database, which is the database of registration for your organization. This is where you put in the delegations, who's going to be your permanent delegates. This is where they communicate backwards and forwards with you on whether I need a memo. They'll send you a message here. I need a memo off you that says who your new president is. Please send an update. And if you don't catch it and you don't go in regularly, it might be months before you check it. And then you suddenly say, oh, I haven't done that. So you have to maintain these relationships and keep it up to date. And the other one is Indico. Now, I think a lot of you will know Indico because when you apply for events, you have to go in and make your own profile and put that up. Well, what you have to do as an accredited organization and as the person in charge of that is you have to agree or disagree whether that person can attend that event. And sometimes you are actually out of control for this. The UN will agree or disagree. They will say who can and can't attend certain meetings if it's a high-level government forum and there's going to be, they will limit it and have a look. But these are the 2 key areas that you really need to be working on. I go in every 2 weeks and check them. That's sort of how I do it. All right, so over to you, Siobhan. Are there
Thank
any
you.
questions on any of it? Let me just say, is there anything that's cropped up in the chat? Because I can't actually see the chat on my screen. I'm sorry about that. I've got the slides up. Is there anything that we need to discuss? Any questions before we move into the next bit?
Jen has her hand raised. Jen, do you want to unmute yourself?
Jen. Jen knows a lot about this. Hi, Jen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carol, for that incredible presentation. I'm sure everybody appreciated here. Certainly I did as well. I just wanted to, this is not necessarily for everybody, for anyone in particular, but maybe just as a question for all of us. If we are encouraging, all of our federations and the other local BPW to be ECOSOC accredited, how does this play with the mothership, with BPW International? How can we ensure, for example, that we reinforce the messages of BPW International as headed by our president Diana, and of course VP Nilima as well? And also, how can we make sure that it also doesn't dilute the messages in the case of the local initiatives as well? Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Diana or Nalima, would you like to answer that? We were actually talking about this earlier, Jen, as well.
Nalima, I'll give you the honor.
Yes, thank you, Diana. There was a lot of thinking of whether we should have this or not, move this with this initiative or not. But then look at Canada, they have their own 20 people, they are doing their job. And look at Japan, they are training the young people about how to attend and how to get things done at United Nations, how to learn from it. So these are some of the good examples. I'm not going to say that all the clubs who apply this time is going to be the best one or do the job well. But I think as a BPW International, we have to make sure that if they need help after applying, we need to be there. And it has to be a collaborative work. And I think that is where international has to play a role, that we unite those, clubs and federation who apply for it, whether they need help with how to do like how Jenny, like she's a UN representative as well as the UN administrator, who's the one who's handling all the, approval to every communication about UN. She's the one who's doing it. But then we can have a session after some of the club gets approved. She can give training to them how to run that, because there was one thing that I always thought, and that has always come to my mind when I remember where somebody told me that, why do we start a club when a club president doesn't know how to use an email? That was one of the topic that was raised sometime like long time back. And my point is, why is BPW there? The BPW started because we wanted to empower women. So I think as an organization, you know, with the limited passes that we have and so many women that we have to deal with and so many clubs and federations who are actively working, but I don't think we as international are able to bring all those voices together. And with this, I think even this time, if 10 of the federation applies, let's say they will get like 20 passes each, then maybe by next year we'll have like 200 of BPW members from maybe, let's say, from 100 countries, two from each country are there. So I think we will make our voice louder and clearer at the United Nations than having a limited people just attending the UN event. And I think it's all about, that's what I said to Siobhan and Carol from the beginning, is today's just the beginning. We just help them how to register. Later on, we'll help them how to function and make sure that, they are aligned to BPW International. So that will be my target for next 3 years. But after that, I can't promise, but I'll always make sure that whoever takes my position next time, to think about it and help all the clubs who actually gets approved.
Yeah, I think, Jen, as well, you were talking about how can we make sure that we're all speaking the same language in the same spaces as well. Yeah?
Right,
And,
right, exactly.
the discussion that we had prior to this was in the statements, was really is, you know, I mean, and this means it puts a bit more pressure on international, but international says, right, these are the 5 key areas we're covering in the statements. If these are relevant to your club, please enhance these issues within your statements. And I think that's one way, what's one example of how you can engage grassroots membership in the UN work and then ground it back. So when you come back after, let's use the Commission on the Status of Women as an example, when you come back from CSW and say, hey, look, you know, we wanted this language, well, not this language, but this issue covered, and here it is in the outcomes document. Let's go back and tell the members that we actually have got this reflected in this document. We can now look and see what our government's doing about it. And I think that's the longer journey. And I know Jenny and I speak the same language because we've been in the same places, and it's a challenge. So that was one of the other things that we thought we were thinking of. Diana, did you want to add anything on to that, or no? Then
yes. I'd like to remind everybody that this is an incredible responsibility, and that if we get accredited as a club or as a federation, we need to make sure the members understand what we have in our hands. They cannot imagine to have a pass just to go and tour in the UN. We have to prepare the members for this responsibility. We have to tell them what it means to have a voice and to take BPW's voice. So that's what I can say. I mean, it's very important. It's not something we can take lightly. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. And I think the how it's going to emerge is the answer to that. Marie-Claude, hello, nice to see you. Bonjour.
Hello, nice to see you too. Thank you for the presentation and the event. Sorry I was late, but I was in an appointment and the person was late, so I'm sorry. So I had to rush. Yes, as Jenny said, I think it's very important to have the key messages to advocate, you know, at all levels, in fact, whether national, regional, and international. And I think the best idea would be really to have regular meetings at the UN level, at the UNSC level, steering committee level, and with UN VP Nelima, to get these key messages through and elaborated as well. Because, you know, as you know, I'm representing BPW to UNESCO. I've been high-level political functions, and every time I can take the floor, I do it. But because also I know the key messages, because then I sometimes, you know, for example, or very often for education, I would always consult colleagues. And I think this is very important. We can do this also by emails, you know, and this is very important. That was when I was representing the liaison committee at the SDG4 steering committee. And it was very important, but it was very, very insightful and fruitful. And I, for example, of course, communicated with Eva and also with our UN, what's her name? Suzanne, of course, and many others. So I think that's a good idea, maybe to be inspired by. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie-Claude. I'm just going to move on to the next session, but if anyone comes up and has any questions, they are welcome to raise their hand or put them in the chat, because I'll only be speaking about the accreditation form very briefly. But Carol, if you want to move on to the next slide, kindly. So where to from here is what I'm going to quickly talk about. Carol and I have only really been talking about this for about a week and a half, but we're definitely incredibly motivated and interested in supporting federations and clubs to work towards and successfully achieve ECOSOC status, because we entirely support that. We need a unified, loud voice within the UN, not to mention in every other sphere of society. So the first step is thank you to those who have already completed a wee form that we've created. We're just gathering together information about federations and clubs that are interested in applying and would like some support. Once we've got that list together, and I imagine this is something that's going to be happening over the next few weeks, we're going to start inviting you to a WhatsApp group specific for supporting federations and clubs through ECOSOC accreditation. That's where we'll circulate opportunities to connect, where people will be able to raise questions or vent about some of the questions in the questionnaire, and maybe tell us how the character limitation is driving them crazy, and where we can sort of discuss the process. When we might look at having sort of a buddying system, or maybe some sessions where we go through the questionnaire, have like a drafting online session. But at the moment, we're just asking people to complete the JOT form so that we know where clubs and federations are, and we know who the contact person is. So we still have a couple more minutes for questions. I think that's the last slide, if I'm right, if I recall, Carol.
The last one says, thank you, in as many languages as we could find.
Yeah.
I hope they're all there.
Thank you so much. Thank you from everyone coming to the call from wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day it is. Yeah, it's fantastic to connect as always. And Carol, I will leave the next word with you.
Okay, so I think this has been recorded and will be uploaded somewhere. Do you know where that is, Siobhan, on the...
I will circulate it around the WhatsApp groups.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
The slides are available. The slide of the big UN system, please bear with my messiness. That is one that I prepared many years ago for my students when I was at the university. And I've just found that for those of us who are visual, it's easier to have a visual than to talk about, acronyms and numbers and letters that come out. So thank you all. We are available, as Siobhan said, and let's look forward to see how we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And yes, I will not give Carol's personal WhatsApp. It will be flooded. But please, I hope you have the QR code. Just only the ones who are applying, please, reach out to them so that we don't, flood them with all the emails. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we stay on?
Big hug to all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls.
Bye,
Have a
Nelima.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ciao Diana. Ciao Nelima. Ciao
Ciao,
tutte.
ciao. Ciao,
Bye.
Pinella.
Thank you. Bye bye, Nelima, Diana. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Carol. Thank you, Siobhan.
Oh, I have a question. Thank you, girls. Bye-bye.
Can you hear me?
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
See you in
everyone.
Malta.
Thank you.
See you in Malta.
Yes, see you in Malta.
In Malta
Yes.
next May.
Basta.
Thank you.
Ciao, Caterina.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Barbara Bosman's trying to ask a question.
Yeah, but everybody, yeah.
Sorry, I
So
didn't have...
we talk about, this was all good information, but what's the downside of doing this?
Who's talking?
What?
Barbara. From USA.
Oh, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. How you doing?
So
One of the things I would suggest is to have a separate email when you apply it and have the password and hand over to the next person so that the account doesn't disappear. That is one thing I would suggest, because what if somebody gets crazy and then doesn't give you password, then you don't have access to UN.
You're asking what the downside is, Barbara?
Yeah, that wasn't what I was asking. And to Nalima's point, that's why we're going to be using our officer email addresses, because those transfer from one to the next. We don't.
Absolutely, yeah.
Asking about what would be, I don't know whether downside is the right question or not, but basically, why would a BPW organization not want to do this, or what's
they don't want to attend at the UN. They don't want to. They're not interested in that. Not all clubs are.
The timing,
The
responsibility,
timing of
commitment.
it, yeah, the extra administration it puts onto the organization, the costs it is, because for some travel they can't travel. There's a lot of downsides to it, but the upside of it is, I think that's why you have to have the discussion within the club first and say, is this going for, is what are, and have that conversation. You're asking the right questions, Bob.
That's the part we need to talk about. And so what are the cons of going? I mean, it's not hard to talk about what the pros of doing this are, but what are the cons? So basically, within some organizations, potentially this is not quite where the direction that they're ready for. It may be financial constraints, but fortunately, there's a number of things that don't require in-person, correct?
Okay, one of the things I would say, Barbara, is USA has to apply because it was the first country.
Please don't go there. That is not what I'm asking, and that's not where this is going. Yeah. I would like to be, when I have a conversation with my people, I'm not everything is roses and sunshine. We got to dig in the dirt in order to get the flowers to come up. So I need to present a full picture, not just it's all flowery and wonderful. I'm not saying that we're not going to do this. I would like to discuss realistically what are the challenges and what potentially could be a con. The other reason I want to talk about the cons is because that's the only way that I can properly defend against them, or explain where someone might perceive it as a con and we can see it as a pro. So those are the specifics that I want that level of a conversation, not the fluff.
Barbara, the two things that come to mind for me is, one, that if it's becoming another work stream on top of the president or the executive secretary or the vice president UN, and you're already having trouble with overloading of the executive and succession planning because people look to the role of the executive and they see it as unattainable, that's a problem. Okay. The second item is there is a risk area here, I think, in federations and clubs within a country. So what if BPW New York wants to apply and have their own registrative status with the government, so they're an entity in their own right? How does that work in with the federation for the USA? So awesome. I think the federations need to get ahead of knowing where they sit as a country. Like in New Zealand, we have only 10 clubs, and some of them are incorporated societies, therefore have the government registration that they would need. Some of them are not, but something to be aware of.
Well, and fortunately, for me, and just having that as an understanding, the work streams, yes, but we're doing the foundation work right now for, as Nalima mentioned and everybody mentioned, this is going to take time. And I know that sometimes I have people that I'm interacting with who go, if this isn't going to happen within my lifespan as leadership, I'm not going to go there. Or they're not able to see something that's beyond their leadership time frame. And that's what I don't care if I'm not going to be the next president, or it takes 4 years, and in 4 years I'm not going to be in this leadership role. This is still something, is it good for our organization down the road? And I do appreciate the where the clickers for me was some of the potential cons in what was presented today was this is a global empowerment opportunity for people here, for me in the United States, to move to that direction. And it's not always flowing in one direction. Instead of everything going this way, we can go this way by being part of this. So that helps with fording that off. Are there any other things on the con side that you can think of that I might need to look at or be prepared to approach?
I think that from my perspective, and I've been doing this for a long time, is the continuity part. And you've touched a little bit on this in the discussion. And so we came to, when I generally go with, because I was the former chair of Asia Pacific Women's Watch, and I've been the vice chair of Asia Pacific Women's Watch. And I've attended UN conferences, but I've been going for a long time with different hats, different identities. But the continuity for the organization was, because the chairs, the leadership changes, and you're hitting on this. What we decided just as COVID hit, and it was mainly as a result of COVID that we did this, is we formulated a special position in the committee, or in this, we have a steering committee. So within the steering committee, that is entitled Chief Executive Officer UN, which is basically the one that is the continuous person who interacts with the UN and makes sure that the can sign for all the passes, can make sure that we can do that, because that was the challenge that we had in the organization, is the chair would rotate around the regions, and because our chair is situational, and the secretariat would move with the chair, and so the knowledge shift. And so that's why we ended up setting up one position for the organization that did that. Now BPW International have got that in the vice chair position. So I don't know if the federation wanted to do that link then with all of the clubs, or I don't know if that would work, but it was that's how we got around it, was having one position. So the next person who comes in, I work with them through that process, they take it over, and then I'm hands off it.
Yep.